Welcome to the Inner Athlete podcast, where we discuss all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring.
Welcome back to the Inner Athlete podcast. I've got a special guest here, almost fresh off the plane from Sydney. We've got Holly Neville here. Holly is one of the swimmers that we look after. But if you just want to explain a little bit more about yourself and what you do and what events that you focus on, and how was short course nationals?
So I swim at an open national level, training 8 sessions in the pool a week and 3 in the gym. And then, I just had short course nationals in Sydney, which was good. I raced the 50, 100, 200 free and 50 fly. I got a small PB in the 50 free and then was on my time for the 100 free and 200 free. And then I got to race against Bronte Campbell, which was a good experience, and made 2 A finals, which was good.
Yeah, to give some perspective, I think Bronte Campbell's like 10 years older as well. Yeah. She's like 28, 29. And how old are you, Holly?
18.
And then you were like, what? How far off were you from her, roughly?
About a second in the 50 free, and then 2-ish seconds in the 100.
All right, so you're starting to kind of close in on her as well, so especially at that real high level. So let's kind of talk about your origin story. How did you get into swimming? Because you're kind of like, from all the testing that we've done, you've done multiple sports. Kind of like, What did you do growing up, I guess, sporting-wise?
When we moved to Australia, I started swimming just for like the water safety side of things, living near a beach. And then fell in love with it and just moved up the squad levels quite quickly because they needed to fill a few places. So then I jumped in and enjoyed it. And then I started competing in the pool when I was 8. And then with that, I also did a bit of little athletics when I was younger because we live around the corner from Mento Nath's track. Did a bit of dancing, wasn't very good at it. And then I also did life-saving until I until I was too old to continue nippers.
Yeah, so was that like 13, 14 years old? Yeah. And so you've done a variety of sports growing up, kind of like in that you're a very competitive person.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Because I met your parents and obviously, trained your dad and your sister as well. Where did the competitiveness come from?
I think Dad's quite competitive. And then just want to be the best in my sports.
Yeah. And when did you realise kind of like you had a thing for swimming?
I think I've just always enjoyed it and enjoyed the feeling in the water. And I really enjoy competing and racing. And that's like the main part of it. So I guess. Yeah,
so it's really just being in the water, going to training sessions because you're either here a couple of minutes early on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I know that you go to the pool pretty early as well. You're always there sometimes before your coaches as well. And you're always prepared, ready to go. And then it's kind of like that enjoyment factor and you've just kind of like maintained that enjoyment because enjoyment's like the outcome of the sensation of the feeling. But there's something you just keep coming back towards of, you feel really good being in the pool from all the training.
Yeah.
And I guess it's kind of got into this point now, where are you at the moment in terms of your swimming career? So you've kind of gone through the junior, the state programs. Now you're at the national level. Now, where are you now? And kind of like, what is the end goal with your swimming?
Well, the ultimate goal is make the New Zealand team and go to the Olympics. And then last year, I got my first world B time in the 100 free short course. So over the next year, hopefully getting closer to those A times for long course, leading up to Worlds, which is in like February next year, and then Paris, which is in July.
Yeah, so it seems pretty close because obviously the Tokyo Games was in 21, and then there's obviously a 3-year window.
Yeah.
And then you're really closing in on getting to the Paris for New Zealand.
Yeah.
So, in terms of your training load, because you mentioned that how many sessions a week? I think you're swimming through 8? 8 sessions a week, and you're doing 3 gym. How do you go about, and then not to add any more pressure, you're in year 12 as well.
Yeah.
how do you go managing that training load, study load, and just having a life?
My school's been pretty good. I'm only doing 4 subjects this year, and then I did 1, 3, 4 last year. So I get 2 subjects worth of spares at school. So I try and be as productive as I can in those spares, because I know that I don't have the time after school to do it. And then when I'm really pushed for time, I do homework in the car, and Mum will drive me. Otherwise, I'll drive myself. So then dinner's on the table when I get home.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've got a bit of a system in place where, I guess, you're in the middle and you're trying to maximise everything you do.
Yeah.
Then obviously you got to try and sleep, because some days you're doing double sessions.
Yeah.
How do you go with like the turnaround time of doing a night time and then coming back the next morning?
I'm a good sleeper, and I go to bed at 8:30. So unlike a lot of people my age who stay up really late, I'm in bed early. So then I still get that 7-8 hours of sleep every night.
Yeah. Then how do you go about, so you mentioned, what time are your afternoon trainings?
They start at between 5 and 6 o'clock.
Yeah. So then you got to try and get to sleep by like 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
How do you, like, is there a trick that you do, or is it just like you're just pretty calm and mellow person when you're at home?
I'm pretty calm. And then with like getting up early, I'm tired by the time 8:30 rolls around. So I'm getting a bit grumpy after that.
Okay, so and then during the days, is who helps you with the food side? It sounds like food dinner's already sorted, but who helps you out with like breakfast and lunch for the school days?
Breakfast, if I'm at home, I do it, and then if I'm at training, Mum will either drop something off at school for me, or she'll have driven me and picked something up along the way. And then for lunch, if I don't take leftovers and heat them up in the microwave at school, Mum sometimes drops off a toastie through the school fence, which I haven't got caught for yet.
That's right. Might as well order Domino's, get delivered.
Yeah. And then we have a toasting machine for the 12s.
Oh, that's good. So
toast things.
Then you mentioned the school is kind of like really like they're trying to be as supportive as they can.
Yeah.
In terms of with the education and providing enough time for you to be able to train. So obviously they've got your back.
Yeah.
On that side, then your mum tends to not cart you around. It's a bad way to put it. Kind of like takes you to training sessions.
Yeah.
Kind of prepares food, brings food to you as well. But then you're still semi-independent. And you still got to prepare your own breakfast and whatnot. So it sounds like you've kind of got like a little system that's kind of worked well. And then obviously, I think, do you feel like your mum has your best intentions and kind of like has your back and that she really supports your dreams and your goals?
Yeah, all the family does.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So they're all riding the Holly train at the moment?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And obviously that's like one of the big things here is making sure that you have, for us as well, for us to be able to provide the support for you from a training perspective. But when you first came here, when was that? Was that 21, I think?
Yeah, it was just after COVID, or during COVID.
Oh, it was March or April 21?
Yeah.
Yeah, around Easter,
Yeah.
I think it was around Nationals time.
Just before Nationals.
Yeah. Do you remember that time, the conversation that we had? Do you remember what we discussed during that time?
Not exactly.
No, exactly. So it was an interesting moment because you came in, like we... and then we had a discussion about what your goals were and whatnot. Then you had a higher level of awareness and about what are the things that you need to work on. But then you also were working with Ian, I'm still working with Ian at this point, about understanding what were your actual issues. But then you also had a few other issues as well, especially with your lower back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really playing havoc because you had issues with your up kick.
Yeah.
At the time. Yeah, I actually remember this pretty well.
Yeah.
And then what do we then training wise? We assessed you, and then we figured out, all right, at the end of the day, you're using your lower back like your glutes essentially, like your hips. And then we had figured out that specifically, then we also figured out that you also had a history of ankle issues as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sprained a few ankles.
Yeah, and then basically that was having a bit of a dampening effect in your ability to actually squat. So when because you've got long femurs, relatively long femurs to a short torso, that makes it a little bit harder for you to be able to kind of like squat and sit your hips back. So then we identified that. We identified the ankle issues as well. And then we really started to kind of clean up your squat quite quickly. Then as a result, I think it was within 4 weeks, I think you got your first PB in quite a long time as well. How was that feeling, getting that PB and just kind of like breaking that voodoo? Yeah,
it was good. I think I had a good state and nationals, and then just improving in different areas to help the stroke and the pull.
I think one of the big things that I had noticed, I guess this is a lesson for all athletes of any level really that want to make it far, is having like a high sense of self-awareness of kind of like what you do well and what are the areas you need to specifically focus on, and then finding the right person to be able to work on those specific attributes. And then obviously over time, I had a few conversations with Ian about the things that he identified in the pool, what I had identified in your assessment, what we were doing in the training program, and obviously kind of just rinsed and repeated that process as a result. Then kind of like every major campaign that you had, whether it's states or nationals, it's just like you kept kind of showing good signs of improvement as well. Then the other part that I found really interesting is that any PB was a good PB. Can you kind of like elaborate a little bit more in terms of how you kind of like approach, getting PBs or not getting bogged down by when performances you're not always knocking off PBs?
Yeah, so I've never had big PBs. They're usually like 0.1, 0.04 was at the short course nationals just gone. And sometimes it's hard because you see people get like the 2-second drops, 1-second drops, but then everything's learning. So from the meet just gone, like I'd never swam without flags before, so it's just a learning experience. And then you take it back into the pool and work hard on it. My turns have improved a lot because that was a weakness of mine last year, especially at like nationals. I would lose so much speed going in and out of the wall. So coming off that, I worked on it, and then that was one of my biggest strengths at the meet just gone. So I just take everything back into the pool and work harder.
Yeah, and then we implemented a bit of a training diary in the early days as well. Do you remember the training diary? Yeah, do you want to elaborate a little bit more, kind of like how it helped you, I guess, focus on like more specific things in your training?
Yeah, so I haven't used it recently, but I need to bring it back into training, and I would write down 2 positives and 2 improvements for every session, just so I'm not just getting overwhelmed by I'm not good at this, I need to work on this, but seeing what I'm good at, and then also having those improvements so I have a focus for the next session or the next week in training.
Yeah, and the whole point was to have a bit more of a clearer outcome of what you need to focus on next. So you kind of assess the present of how your performance was, but then moving forward, you're able to kind of like specifically address those issues into the next training session. And it kind of almost became like a domino effect that you just kind of like started to see like small but gradual improvements in what you're doing, but you also had a focus, as you mentioned, into each training session as well, and it kind of works like a charm essentially. I think moving to long course in December, I think it'll be a good time to bring it back, especially if the flags are out. They don't utilise flags, so it might be important there as well. So I guess, what has been some of the key things? What have been like 3 key takeaways that you've had along this journey from, I guess, going from like the state level now pretty much getting to the point of representing your country? What have been like some key takeaways along the journey so far? Or something that would be valuable that you wish you had known sooner?
That I'm stronger than I think I am, mentally and physically, and I can probably push myself harder like, I didn't used to think, like, I'll lift in the gym or I'll be in the pool, but I can make sure I just push myself harder because there's always that next level.
Did you think, was there like a limiting belief behind that?
I think in some aspects, yes. So, like, in the gym, probably injuring my back has that, like, I don't want to lift so heavy that, like, I injure myself again. And then in the pool, just feeling like tired at the end sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with all the gym stuff as well, because I know when we started introducing like RDLs and I think it was like trap bar deadlifts, you were kind of really hesitant about going up in weights.
Yeah.
Was there like a point where it's like, oh, my back's going to be okay?
Yeah. Once I started, like, because my core used to be really weak, so then my back would take all the load, and then that led to the back injury, which wasn't in the gym but was affected by the gym. And then when I came here, just like working on the core and the glutes, and then once that felt strong enough, then I was like, yeah, I can go heavier.
Cool. And how have you found the whole process of training here? How have you found the whole journey since, April 21 to where were we, September? Yeah, September 23. Jesus, a long time.
It's been really good. I've worked on like all the things that I was kind of neglecting and not focusing on. So like my core, my ankle flexibility, like in the pool for kick, and then just constantly modifying with what my needs are at the time.
Yeah, because I think we had started, there was a point where we started really focusing on your dive position as well. Then if we look at your dives, you're getting so much further out compared to everyone else.
Yeah.
It's almost like your torso is like horizontal, and you have to have like a better entry into the water rather than just go straight down. And that was number one. And then also with the ankle mobility, that was a key component for that as well, to be able to get to that shin angle drop to be able to project out. Then number two was like really addressing the turns. But actually, what about the lats? Actually, we didn't speak about your lats. Remember you had issues with your lats at one stage?
Yeah.
And we stumbled across just a way to fix that?
Yeah. I struggled engaging them in the catch. So I'd reach out and then they would drop. And then in doing like lat pull downs, having the bar, the pole, holding the pole like up helped engage it while I was working the other lat. Like I would be swimming.
Yeah, we kind of like, you said when you were doing freestyle, you felt like your lats weren't really kicking in or you weren't getting much power. Then I think then you said, when you had the snorkel position, the snorkel on, then it was like, all right, let's just try and mimic that a little bit. I know it's a bit not woo-woo, but it's kind of like shunned upon going like more sport specific, but we tried it and it ended up working like a charm. Yeah. Then we just kind of implemented that from there on in, essentially. And then we just loaded the heck out of it. Yeah. As a result. And then moving forward, so we're in September now. Then you've got states coming up in December. Then you've got world trials.
Yeah, they're in Jan.
So you got Jan, Feb. Then you got worlds.
If I make it, yeah.
If you qualify, yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
But then hopefully again the Olympics, which is July next year.
If I qualify.
If you qualify, okay. Yeah. So there's quite a few things that you've got to kind of tick off on that. So what's the plan moving forward from here? So you've kind of, I know you're kind of like fresh from nationals. Like, what do you think is the plan moving forward for you over the next 3-4 months?
At the moment, at training for the next few weeks, we're working on like aerobic fitness, but with power mixed in. And then in 6 weeks, I leave for Queensland.
Yeah, that's an exciting time. So, what are you going to be doing in Queensland? What's the main focus with that?
So the whole family's moving up, and then hopefully I get into the uni I want for the course I want.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna keep training and at a higher level, maybe. Hopefully.
Yeah, and just keep going and get the Olympics, and hopefully we'll be able to see you on the big screen, or the silver screen in this case. What is one thing that when you came here for the first time, I know you've trained at other facilities, is there anything that you felt like, because obviously you've been here for over 2 years now, what was like the key thing for you that kind of kept you here?
I think the training times have been really good, so I can fit the amount of sessions I want into my week, because swimming's not very flexible with their times. They're set in stone. So having the sessions before school, like, I can be really consistent, and then I see improvements a lot quicker than having them all after school, and I'll be like once a week, maybe twice.
Yeah, so you reckon the training volume going from like once or twice to 3 times a week has been a key thing for you? Yeah,
and being consistent with it.
Yeah. I think consistency is one of the biggest parts. Then I think I remember with your training, I used you as a bit of a guinea pig for certain stuff as well. And that was still, I think, before you go, I'll continue to try some different things here and in. Remember the lactate retention method? Do you remember
on the
that?
bike? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember how it went?
Was it 30 seconds on the bike?
Yeah.
And then a 30-second squat hold.
Yeah.
And then repeat that 6 times.
Yeah, but not straight after each other.
Yeah, like 3 minutes.
2.5, 3 minute rest in between. So I think I've discussed this a few times before, but we did the lactate retention method. The only reason why is because leading into short course, the turns, it's almost double the turns because you did 200 free as well. There's a lot more kicking involved. There's less arms, essentially. Because of the amount of time you spend underwater as well, because you can stay underwater for up to 15 meters, and that's even short course as well, isn't it? Okay, so you spend a lot of time underwater, so you have limited times to be able to breathe. It's probably less as well, so you have to kind of like better deal with lactate build up in your legs, and obviously that was the main point of doing the lactate retention method, is to be able to build your tolerance for your legs to work at a high intensity over a sustained period of time. How did you find that from the first session to like then going back into training? I think it was after like maybe 8 weeks, I think, up till that.
Yeah, after the sessions I felt sick. But then at training I was able to hold, like in the kick sets, hold my kick for longer and come in at faster times, which was really good to see. And then in the pool, like racing, just having the hard kick at the end of the race, which I tended to drop off a bit in the last 25. So that was
to be able to have like extra juice in the tank for that last 15 meters for the, to finish strong.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad it worked. Yeah.
It's
perfect. Anything else you want to add? No, that's it. I appreciate you spending the time to come down, have a bit of chat about your journey. It's been, for me, it's been a real privilege to be a part of it as well, and for you to be a bit of a guinea pig at sometimes as well. For Holly, I think she kind of understates her successes from time to time as well. Yeah,
maybe.
Probably one of the most athletic individuals that we've worked with here. She runs a good 20 meter and she's very quick. Also, we're going to talk about your state athletics as well. How'd you go with that? Because then you run the school athletics.
It was alright. It was a long night.
Yeah.
I did the 100, 200, 800, 4x1, 4x4.
So you did a lot.
Yeah.
And how did you go in the hundreds mainly?
In the 100, I came third. I don't know what time I ran though.
Not bad for a swimmer.
Yeah.
And then obviously you've had, some minor setbacks. I know you've had a bit of a trend of injuring yourself leading out into big meets as well, with your finger, your wrists, ankles, toes.
I dropped a weight on my foot and then I sprained my ankle.
Yeah, we had to figure shit out.
Fractured finger. Wrist injury. Yeah. Yeah,
so we had to figure some stuff out along the way, but I think you've always kept me on my toes to some degree as well. I know Ian's been like, oh God, what now?
Yeah.
Then yeah, you've overcome that. I think you were sick, a couple of times as well. Managed to kind of work through that as well. But yeah, moving forward, I think everyone's pretty excited, especially Inner Athlete, to see you on the big screen in Paris.
Thanks.
Cool. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Really does help us. We're trying to bring, individuals that are really on the path of going from a youth athlete to becoming, not really mature age, a young adult, essentially, transitioning into, the adult world of athletics, sport performance, and really kind of like help parents kind of guide the way and kind of like what's the secret sauce of the recipes that other athletes are using or have in place. For example, Holly has, a really good support network. I think the whole family's backed her 100%. And then it's all about just surrounding the athlete, in this case for Holly, with the right people, with the right tools, at the right time as well. So until the next one, thanks.
You have just listened to the Inner Athlete podcast. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with the release of weekly episodes. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to get great tips on all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring.